Hi, Rob.
Hi, Jerry. We're back.
Yes, we are.
Oh, great.
I was just hoping through this conversation, this next conversation of ours, that people watching would be able to gain an extra insight into your method of teaching rest stroke on the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
What caught my attention about your method of teaching rest stroke was just the progressiveness of the method. You know, step one, it's very well codified. You know, you talk about the exact trajectory. You talk about the curve of the finger, and I really want people to have a listen to the way you think through this process, because how I think most other people teach rest stroke is, well, there is some degree of some measure of progression, but it's nowhere near as detailed and as assured as what I can see in your method. Yeah, it's some aspects of it are left to chance. So sometimes I find that, especially when I used to teach students rest stroke, some students who had that talent were able to have a very responsive rest stroke, whereas others somehow had a rest stroke that wasn't quite as good, you know.
The majority, probably.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
But here we have finally a good shot, I think, at teaching rest stroke consistently and effectively to anyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So perhaps you could shed some light on
Okay,
this.
to say teach to anyone, we have to first of all start out with the idea that we do not bring the nails
No nails
into
involved.
the presentation, right?
Okay.
Because we have to think first and foremost of the idea of developing children.
Okay. So your assumption is beginner starts off with
No nails.
no nails. Okay.
The physics does not involve nails.
Mm-hmm.
The nails are an adjunct to the fundamental physics, which involves ligaments and flesh and levers.
Joints, yes.
Exactly, right. Okay. And only when that has been established will we have a good idea of how to grow the nail, right, which must on no account disturb what has been established, right? And very often with children it will have been established over a period of years.
Yep.
You know, so, and then there's also the various reasons why a fairly large number of people who take up the guitar will never grow nails. Some of my best students play without nails, you know, and they do that simply because they didn't know that you had to have nails to play. Now, of course, the tone is not the same, the velocity may not be as great, and there are many considerations that would say mandate the use of nails, cum flesh at the highest level of expression, right?
Okay.
But we are not talking about that. We're talking about the vast base of people who take up the guitar.
Okay.
For every one at the highest level of expression, we've got probably thousands
Yes.
down here, which of course are the supporting base for recitals, for, right, the whole idea of keeping the guitar in the forefront of the public mind, and
Yes.
so on and so forth. So they're just as important.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. All right, so number one, we don't think of the nails. Okay? Now, number two, we deconstruct, you know, oh, such a fun thing to do, you know. Gee, can I do that, teacher? Oh, sure, you know, how do you do it? Well, you just go home and wiggle your fingers, do an andante on the strings.
From a teacher's perspective, you're very tempted to think, oh yeah, because I can do it,
right? You
can do it.
Yeah. Okay, well, it just so happens that, you know, if you happen to be a Julian Bream or somebody, maybe you can pick up the guitar or John Williams and walk into the lesson the next day and do it. But for the vast majority of people, it doesn't work that way.
That's not the case, yes.
What I eventually came up with on this was that the most fundamental consideration involves acknowledgement of the miracle of our ability to control the firmness in the tip while flexing the fingers at the bass joint. Yeah, now it took evolution a few zillion years to work this out, or however it happened. It did happen, fortunately for guitar playing. Yeah, and we capitalize on this at every stage in rest stroke playing. Now the problem is that when we're starting out, we have a very strong tendency to release the firmness on the tip because to bring the finger across the string in a flaccid position like this is very, very much more forgiving than to bring it across
firmly.
Yeah. Now, if I forget about the nail, I could show it like this. That this is much harder to do, involves a much smaller tip surface to do than simply to do this. Yeah. So intuitively, this is definitely the approach that people will take.
And there are a lot of people out there playing with flaccid tips.
Yeah.
You know.
Now we'll point out why that's not a good idea as we go along.
Okay.
You know, but it nonetheless is a way of producing notes, and you could say that somebody has something when they can do that.
Yeah.
You know, and if they're a rank beginner and they're not shown the advantages of the other way, they might, you know, fall into that as a more or less permanent way of playing. As a matter of fact, my teacher, in his first method book, actually exemplifies that method, calling the fingertip like a paintbrush that you drag across the. You see, so there's a lot of confusion out there about that. You know, that he straightened it out, and the guitar community has straightened it out, and so on and so forth. But beginners still tend to do it.
Yes.
You know, just because it's so natural. See, so that idea of maintaining firmness here while flexing here, right? Okay. Now we have to either I'm going to spend this whole presentation playing with my nailless left hand, or you just have to pretend the nails aren't here.
The nails are not there.
Okay.
Okay. I think that's a better option.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. So the firm tip plus preparation is best done. See, like this. Okay. We don't bother bringing the A finger in for a little while. We'll save that one. Okay. But the point here is that the finger remain firm and curved.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and that generally proves to be pretty manageable in the prepared state.
Position. Yes.
Right. Okay. Now, step number 2. We've established that the tip will be firm, and we want now to go to the unprepared position with acceleration.
And that's quite a huge leap.
It is a huge leap, right?
Yes.
But the fact that we're doing it only with single fingers means that it's, for the most part, doable. And then, if I do say so myself, the crucial distinction here is the idea of the sample tapping.
That helps bridge the gap.
That helps very, very much, because number 1, the finger's completely relaxed, okay? And number 2, I can set the trajectory through feeding information repeatedly and rapidly into my system. You know, the fact that I'm doing it quickly is the real genius of uniformity. If I'm just trying to make one individual stroke, I don't have enough information to compare the movement to anything stable, right? But the idea that I can do this, and then when everything feels just right, see, I've checked on my tip firmness now, right, okay, and then, you see, that is just a duplication of the sample tapping plus, right?
Crossing over the string.
Exactly, okay. Now if I do with M, again, single finger, right, there's my sample tapping. I've checked on the nail, right? I keep the trajectory stable. It's like a hammer. I don't lift a hammer and go like this and try to hit. I lift the hammer in the exact trajectory that's going to bring it down against the nail. As simple as possible, right? Okay, so here. And especially with M, you know, we have a tendency later in alternation to grab with M because the gripping muscles are so powerful compared to the extending muscles.
Yes.
But using the sample tapping, I'm then able to do both extension and flexion in a relaxed way, so they can equalize much more closely. Right? Okay. So that gives us firm tip prepared.
And then you bring in acceleration.
Right. Then firm tip plus acceleration. Now we're ready to go to alternation. Okay.
Usually that's where we start.
Yeah.
With alternation.
Precisely.
Yeah. And you go through these steps.
So I think starting with alternation is a bit like building castles in the air. You know,
that feel like that, yes.
Hasn't really gotten to the most fundamental considerations. And also the fact of, you know, I do this and wow, does that tone in any way resemble the tone that I do with the other finger? And usually with most people, of course, it won't.
Yes.
So, eek, you know, and I just want to play thumb because
it's uniform in tone. Yes.
Yeah. I had a very talented lady, she went out of the lesson last week and she said to me in a very confidential manner, you know, she says, Mr. Luse, my rest stroke sounds terrible. She'd only been playing it for a week or two, you know. And
yes.
I said, well, exactly. That's why we first do the thumb, you know, and you get such a nice feeling about everything being uniform, and then you must address that problem with the rest stroke as time passes. May take quite a while. Never mind. You know, you'll get there eventually.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, now, alternation. The problem with alternation, in addition to the problem with the tone, let's forget about that for the moment. The problem with alternation is the idea of remaining against the string. This is a very, very misunderstood idea because, of course, say for instance if I play like this and then I play like this, there's a moment where I did not remain against the string.
Where you have to leave the string.
Right, where I have to leave the string, lift my hand, fly across. And in actual fact, there can be 100 different reasons why I have to leave the string. But each one must constitute a valid reason.
Okay.
That's the point. You see, the Occam's razor trajectory is the simplest possible way. Right. And my hand will respond very, very well to this simplest possible way without interruption. Now, as a way of demonstrating this, if we think of against the string as applying a very, very slight pressure, that is illustrated by the idea that the guitar is held somewhat off pure vertical, right? Okay, so now as I'm going across, do I release the guitar? No. I maintain.
So it stays.
Right. Now, if I have to leave the string for some reason, right. Okay, now the second point is this, that I can demonstrate the use of the arm by, here would be only finger force, and we see that the offset from vertical is very, very small. Okay, now if I allow the weight of my hand to reside against the string, it's like this, and then if I actually use the arm muscles,
it's even greater tilt.
Right, and we see the difference here and we hear the difference in the tone, right?
Yes.
So that's the mic application.
But of course, to clarify for people watching, you're not playing the guitar in this position. Of course, you're just using this as a visual demonstration of the force that you are applying when you play against the string.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so then we have our two considerations. Are we going to play staccato, right? Are we going to play legato, right? And there's another very interesting problem that comes up here, which is the sparkies. Now, sparkies are sympathetic resonance, right? If I play, for instance, E, and I stop this now, it probably won't show up in the presentation, but these...
I can still hear
you
the
can,
residual sound. Yeah.
I don't know whether you out there can hear or not, I hope so, but those notes are ringing. Okay, now in the course of normal playing, the sparkies are sparking off to varying degrees all the time, and we don't notice them because the fundamental is very strong. Okay, but then the problem comes with the staccato.
Yes.
So for staccato, I really have to have a damping mechanism. And we'll later be doing a segment entirely on damping mechanisms, but it's only fair that we bring it in here and show the relevance, because we cannot produce a mic staccato without taking care of the sparkies.
A mainstream
instrumental criteria. You know, they all have ways of damping. Of course, fortunate pianists, the damping is institutionalized within the pedals,
the instrument itself.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, to varying degrees, the instrument takes care of it. Like if you're blowing a note through the flute, the note sounds. If you stop, you have silence. Fortunate flute players, you know. So what we're doing here, you know, is we're taking a very unrefined instrument, and we're trying to apply mic criteria to it, and this has just caused tremendous problems, you know, down through particularly since the instrument was catering to such dilettante preoccupations for so much of its history, you know, and also because it was so soft. The last thing in the world they'd be thinking about is Sparkies. But once we get into the mic world, and that is, don't forget, the world of recording, right? And the world of containing the universe within a grain of sand, so to speak, the limitations of the instrument, yeah, the Sparkies become a definite factor. So they have to be dealt with in a progressive way, and we'll show how we do that in a later segment.